Thank you for joining Gate Global today for our webinar on Oracle subscription billing. My name is Sangeeta Jash and I am the Marketing Manager at Gate Global and also your moderator today for this webinar. Now I would like to introduce our speaker, Mohan Iyer. Mohan leads the finance practice in the Enterprise Application Group at Gate Global and has been working with Oracle applications since the early 90s. He has an accounting major and has led multiple implementations of various EBS versions in upgrades and new implementations. His focus is business process assessments, improvements, and end-to-end process automation. I'll hand it over to Mohan now, who will review the agenda and continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon for the people who are in a different time zone. I'm speaking from the Pacific time zone, so it's still morning for us for a little more longer. But depending on where you are, good afternoon or good evening. I'd like to take a moment to just quickly walk through a set of agenda items for this presentation. I'll start with a background and a business case for subscription billing, and then go on to some of the solutions that are available in the market and give you a high-level overview of what they do and what they provide. And then I'll dive into the specifics of Oracle functionality for subscription billing and how Oracle EBS supports this particular economy. And then we'll open up the session for question and answers after that. The webinar is for an hour. We are hoping to complete whatever content I want to provide within that time frame, leaving enough time for us to go into a question and answer session, which will be beneficial to all of us, including me, so it kind of gives me an idea of what questions are out there and where we can help. The first one, like I said, would be the background and business case, and let me start with that. So as a background, in an article published by The Economist in 2013, their intelligence unit, after having surveyed multiple business leaders in consumer, media, and advisory services for this segment, highlighted a couple of survey findings that are interesting. If you look at the business today, it's changing the way people consume products and services. So more than 50% of the companies are changing or are in the process of changing the way they provide, price, and deliver their goods and services. As an example above, for some years back, probably a decade ago, the only way you could procure and get and use software was that you had to buy a CD or a tape if it is that far back, and you had to install that on your computer or on your large mainframe somewhere, and then you were going to use it. So which means that you had to buy it, and you owned it whether you liked to use it or whether you continued to use it or not. The revenue impact from this evolving method is consumption is relatively low at the present moment. And by revenue impact, I mean, like I said, you would have bought the software, so for the provider of that software, you actually paid for the software, he had the revenue in his hand, he had the money in his hand, he could recognize the revenue. But with the new way of subscription billing, it's evolving the way revenue is recognized, the revenue is even supplied to the provider. The impact as of now is relatively low, but it's growing, and Gartner predicted that a portion of the revenues for more than a third of the companies surveyed will be coming from this segment, which is subscription billing, beginning from this year, 2015. In addition, technology has changed the way we consume goods and services, and it's tremendously changed over the past few years, and it's constantly changing. The term change is the new constant is truer here than now, because as you've seen over the past at least 4 or 5 years, there have been so many different methodologies and methods in which consumption of services and products has changed, and it's impacting the way providers provide the service and how consumers use it. This leads to a new dynamic. Customers are looking for new ways to save spending on aspects of their consumption, and these were not possible before. Like I said, you buy a CD, and that would cost X amount of dollars or rupees or any other currency that you're intending to spend in, and you already spent it at that time. And in this scenario, the customer satisfaction or retention becomes paramount. Now that you have a different mechanic of actually using and consuming the product and service, keeping the customer happy and satisfied is very high up on the list. the consumption methods have changed drastically from before. Now you do not necessarily have to own something outright to use it, which leads you to opt for other capabilities to use a service or a product. You could rent, you could share, you could subscribe, and that's what we're going to cover. We're going to cover the subscription model, which in many ways, renting, sharing, and subscription kind of fall within the aspect of a different mode of using products and services. They are slightly different, and though they kind of at the end result give you some kind of a regular billing or revenue recognition perspective, the subscription billing aspect is slightly different. So this gives the customers a flexible option, and which is important for them because they're looking for different ways to save on what they spend outright. Just a few points on subscription as well as transaction orders economy. Transaction economy or transactional economy, as we're used to being used to doing that for the last so many years, which has changed over the past decade, was a single cell economy where it differs from the subscription economy as of today. The transaction world, you got an order from the customer, you ship the order or fulfill the order, and then you forgot about what was happening unless there was a return or there was some kind of an issue and the customer called you back. There was not much of a conversation with the customer after the initial sell. Like I said, unless there was a problem or he called you back or returned the product, which also had its idiosyncrasies in what you could return, how much time you had to return it, and what you could do with once you have bought the product. In the subscription world, everything happens over a period of time with different levels of complexity. So in a subscription world, it's not that you buy the product up front. You actually are provided a facility to use the product, and you subscribe to that entitlement to use the product over a period of time. And there are different complexities on what happens because there are things that could change over that period of time that you're using it. Since the subscription is over a period of time, the customer gets a lot of flexibility in purchasing that product or service, flexibility in pricing, in payments, in billing, in usage. And then you also land up into other aspects of renewals, cancellations, additions to the way or aspects of the product that you're using. So there are multiple ways in which things can change over the period of the relationship which you have with the customer on his using the product. One major thing that you need to understand is subscription is not just an order type with a billing schedule. In most cases, that is what starts off as the way that you start to use it is you start to use your existing ordering system and say, hey, I'm going to have another type, which is going to be subscription, and I'm going to try and manage it that way. It is not necessarily just a sales order with a billing schedule, which is subscription. There are other elements. There are other aspects that you need to consider. It is not a one-time event, and it has its own life cycle. There are multiple elements that can change, and you could actually upgrade the product usage, or you could downgrade it. You could add other product elements. You could increase or decrease the quantity, because the subscription could be a single user license with one person actually making that happen, or it could be that you have an enterprise license where you have X number of users as part of the subscription. You will typically renew, or you may not, depending on the satisfaction level, depending on your use for that particular service or product, which if you don't have any more use for it, you might cancel it. So there are different complexities in how the products would get used. The traditional model of sell once and forget has evolved into this continuous cycle in the subscription world. So in the isolated transaction which you had before, you sold it, you ordered it once, you invoiced it once, you collect it once, and you're done. There could be a reason why the customer would come back because he needed one more copy of that product, or he needed some additional aspect of an addition to that product. It could be a completely different product that your company sold. And that has evolved in this economy into a subscription-based world where you sign up and then you actually have a continuous dialogue. The provider and the consumer has a continuous dialogue. You start off in many cases with a trial, and then you say, okay, I'm going to subscribe to this product, and then you can choose to upgrade that. You can have add-on product to that. Like I said, you could add users. You typically would start off with a single user license, and then you might trade up to have either multiple users, or you could have an enterprise license where you have limitations or unlimited use of the number of users for that particular product. You could change the term. Instead of paying monthly, you could do quarterly, you could do biannually, you could do annually, whichever one works. Change the frequency. You could downgrade. You could say, I'm not comfortable using some of these aspects of this product. It's not of that much use to me, so I'm going to go ahead and skip the use of that. So now I want to start using a smaller subset of the functionality of this product. And then the hope is that you would renew, and that's what is the hope of the provider, that you would renew on a regular basis and continue to use it over a period of time. You could cancel and then get a credit of unused time. Now, that depends on what kind of a service and what kind of a product it is, whether on cancellation you get a credit or not. That depends also on the term. You could have paid upfront for a year, and I have noticed that you go and do this on a one-by-one basis. Because you paid annually, they say, hey, you could cancel it, but I really won't be able to give you a refund. So you have to pick and choose what credit you get. It typically is not in the hands of the consumer. It's more on the agreement that you had with the provider, whether you get a credit or not. So the business case, going back, what I went over is how the subscription economy has evolved from a single sale point of contact between the provider and the consumer. What happens now is the business case for this is Gartner forecast that I said by 2015, 35% of the global 2,000 companies with non-media digital products, and this was a survey done quite a while back, about 2 or 3 years ago. So it focuses on non-media digital products, but I think that has changed now. Up to 10% of their revenue would be coming from recurring models. And by recurring models, it means it could be subscription, it could be rentals, it could be a sharing mechanism. And this model will enable enterprises to maximize. So there are multiple companies now that you will be familiar with, which I will probably highlight going further down in the webinar, that you'll be familiar with, provide this type of consumption model. And they are happy using, and a lot of consumers are happy using that new method of product usage, because it's, like we said, consumers are looking for ways in which they can reduce the initial outlay or the price that they pay for using a service or a product. This will have an ongoing hopefully a regular revenue stream for the provider, and that disrupts the way we have sold in the past. It is not necessarily something that you sell, get upfront money in lump sum, and recognize the revenue at that point. In this case, you have to manage expectations and the satisfaction of the customers to be able to ensure that there is a regular revenue stream that comes from continuous usage of the product. This is largely due to the way the vast digital economy and the technology has changed in the way you can provide this service to consumers. And primarily what has happened is the way you can control and the way the internet has evolved over the past few years has managed to allow us with additional capabilities in which we can track, in which we can manage the way in which you control what is available, when it is available, and what kind of throughput is available for the customer or the consumer when he comes on the web. The internet evolution over the past couple of decades has dramatically changed what you can do and what the capabilities are for that. Innovations are driving this growth, and they're transforming in the ways in which people use and consume this goods. And the source for this is published, like I said a little earlier, in May 2012 by Gartner. Now, it's a subscription economy, like I said, and you're living it. Companies that provide subscription-based products are becoming part of your life. And you will recognize some of these logos here, and I think this is probably the most oft-used example is Netflix and Zipcar, two completely different methods and service providers that actually provide you with what you need, not needing to own it, but you're either renting or sharing or subscribing. In the Zipcar model, you're actually sharing it with somebody else. You're renting the car for a particular period of time. In Netflix, you're actually having a subscription mode by which you pay on a monthly basis and are provided with the facility of using the digital media and available on the Netflix data store. Spotify is another way in which you're enjoying music. Hulu is another quote-unquote Netflix-like service which allows you digital media. Salesforce.com is one which provides you with a software mechanism by which you can use that, again, in a subscription model. Vacation rentals with Airbnb, that's one of the ones that provide you with a way in which you can share, and it's probably rent and share kind of used loosely in that form for Airbnb. This particular subscription business model where customer must pay a subscription price to have access to that product or service. Like I said, you pay a monthly fee to Netflix. Consumers benefit in this way by, they have convenient choices and it's cheaper for them. Like I said, they don't need to buy outright and own the movie or the car or the software, as the case may be, to be able to utilize them. Netflix, for example, movies and TV serials in Netflix, a car in Zipcar. In Spotify, you don't need to actually own the CD to listen to that music. You could just stream it. Salesforce.com, you don't need to buy the full software. You're just using it with the number of users that you have been provisioned for, and you're paying for that on a month-to-month basis or however the term is. This next addendum is actually a survey done by the European B2C online market community, and it shows you the way in which various marketplaces are actually changing and going over to a subscription-based model. Some of them are going there, some of them are not, as you can see from here, that a few of them, like telecom, media content, utilities, computer services, are all going over to subscription model. Travel and fashion is not. You wouldn't want to be actually renting or sharing somebody else's fashion clothes, so that's why it's not going. Household appliances, it's still something that a lot of people are not moving onto the subscription model for that. So that is another thing which is kind of as a reference point to give you where the economy is moving towards. Now I'll go on to the next item in the agenda, which is subscription billing solutions. What I'm going to do here is kind of walk through an overview of what the subscription economy and the subscription model is requesting from both the provider and the subscriber or the consumer to be able to do with the solutions that are available. Not going to go into the deep methodologies or what each and every solution provider provides you, but give you a high level of what each of them should provide, and then also list out a few of the market leaders in this in this economy, which probably some of you who are doing some research or already using it will recognize. So just to provide a high level of what a life cycle of a subscription is, you have trials that you go to, which is not normally what was provided before. You did not necessarily get trials for software or for cars or anything like that. So you get trials, especially for software and also for consumption of digital media services. And then you choose to subscribe to it. Then you use it. The reason I put the usage out there is because there are some subscription models which are based on usage. How much of this do I use? And then you're billed based on that. Then you bill and collect. Then there's retention and renewal of the subscription for each cycle of periodicity that you do that. There could be cancellations, and then there is a change. There is a change primarily because you're using a portion or a subset of the full functionality or of the full provision that the provider is providing to you. But you could upgrade or downgrade that experience based on how you want to utilize that over a period of time. You could choose to upgrade and use that for a period of time, and then choose that you do not need to continue to use it, or you could downgrade. You could also add additional product flavors to that, so it changes the way you actually use the product. So there's a life cycle in the subscription which goes on with every new person who comes on. What keeps getting provided always and keeps happening always is the bill and collect, the renewal, and probably the change, upgrade, and downgrade of the services that you're using. The subscription billing solutions. So subscription billing solutions mimic the capability of a recurring billing solution. They allow the provider to use the solution to manage a couple of things that facilitate the managing and tracking of subscription usage. So it is kind of like a recurring billing solution, but there are other facets to the subscription model that go way beyond just a pure recurring billing solution. It also allows you for managing promotion and discounts and deals and other related activities that help draw the consumer to either continue to use that product over a period of time or be able to provide additional facilities or functionalities based on the service that they're providing. They allow for per usage tracking and management, or pure fixed subscription management, or a combination of both. And then, like I said, they allow for coupons and deals and promotions and things like that that allow us to entice the customer to get newer functionalities or a higher level of usage of the same product. And as you've seen in the previous pictorial that I had provided, there are trials that lead to a subscription and then a continuous usage of that product over a period of time. Subscription billing solutions, in addition to doing this, they allow you to also provide for usage tracking, user creation, tracking and monitoring entitlements of what's being used or what is capabilities of being used. There's user management where you track on a per unit basis how much a per unit per person or per user is using, and then you can also lead it towards usage-based billing if that's one of the methods of billing that's been chosen. It also provides you with the billing and invoice management perspective, payment acceptance mechanics. And what I mean by that is most subscription models, they provide you with an element of an interaction with a payment provider or a payment service provider who you pick up a credit card set of information. They actually have that information, and you choose to be billed on a monthly basis. They bill your credit card, collect the money on an ongoing basis, and you are not in any way, shape, or form needing to remember that needs to be done. You can choose to be billed every month and then pay the bill, but the ease of use of this so that you don't have any disruption in the facility of usage is that you have this credit card available on file. So PCI compliance and safety concerns are very high up on these solutions that are provided. In addition to that, it also provides you with, like I said, recurring billing, integration with the payment systems and process. So you do not need to be concerned about the fact that your credit card information is out there with this particular subscription provider, and that there is a problem that it might get, hacked. You might have issues with whatever is happening today in the world. That becomes a major concern. So they actually provide interactions with payment systems and payment processors who are PCI compliant, who actually have the framework and the functionality to be able to safeguard your information and not have it available to everybody. It also provides support for multi-currency and multi-country support. So in most of these billing subscription providers, you could be in any country and you would want to use that particular facility, and you would be paying in any currency that you are more familiar with. And you have marketplace for related services. That just happens to be kind of a superset of what some of these solution providers provide you. They have a marketplace where you can have related products and related services that they would push to you, and you could choose to pick and use some of them, or you could ignore all of them. But they have that facility to expand what related services that you could provide to the consumer. There are, like I said, trials, there are coupons, there are discounting options, and that's also an integration with other web apps. Now, most of these solutions that I will be showing you are all cloud or SaaS products that do not necessarily need you to buy something. They themselves are a subscription model in which they provide you the service. So you really don't need to buy something and install it on a computer or on hardware which you own. So that's one of the reasons why it becomes a lot more easier for you to do this. And you can manage billing, invoicing, collections, and other non-accounting functions that is available amongst them. Whether you do them or not, do that or not is a matter of choice. Here is a subset of some of them that provide you with this particular service. And you might recognize some of them, or you may be doing some research and you might know that you've looked at some of these. In the discussions that we've had with multiple people that we've worked with and the multiple prospects or customers that we've got at Jade, we've noticed that Zora is probably right up there on the top. A lot of people are using that. It seems to be a lot more flexible. I personally have not used it myself, so I can't talk to the dynamics and mechanics of how it works, but that seems to be something that's high up there on the list of what people are using. Having said that, I will now jump to where we have a kind of a sweet spot. We are primarily, like Sangeeta had mentioned, we're primarily an Oracle service provider, and we've used Oracle for the past decade that we've been in business, and we know Oracle inside out. And Oracle has a functionality that provides a solution for subscription billing economy. What I'll take you through is not the entire mechanics of how it's set up and how it works, but a brief overview of how that can be managed and which particular versions of Oracle that can be managed in. And so most companies have an O2C process, an order to cash process, which works through that somebody comes in, there's a prospect, you talk about an opportunity with them, they say, yes, we would like to buy this, and you start the billing cycle for that. Prior to the version that most companies are using today is 12.1.3. Prior to a version that's available now, the latest version currently available from Oracle, not necessarily the one that all the customers are using, is 12.2.4. So most companies are using 12.1.3. And in that particular version that most companies are using, one of the drawbacks of the functionality that Oracle provides for subscription billing is that you cannot seamlessly integrate your order to cash process with subscription billing. Subscription billing is provided as a functionality which is available through something called service contracts, another product that Oracle sells, and that manages the billing cycle. So if you had an order to cash cycle which has an opportunity which turns into a sales order, and you wanted to seamlessly move that through your order to cash cycle, there is a gap where you need to actually break that up by not putting the subscription model sale through that cycle, but having to go through a different cycle, which is from service contracts. You could not use the standard Oracle order to cash process to manage that one particular line item which manages subscription. You have to independently enter a service contract because that's what manages the billing schedules in Oracle. Beginning in 12.2.2 and going forward, the functionality to manage this seamlessly in your order to cash cycle was introduced by Oracle. Now you can enter an order using your standard order to cash cycles and fulfill even your subscription services or products, and that would automatically get seamlessly built into your order to cash cycle. It would manage whatever needs to be done in service contracts to manage the billing schedules, and that functionality would still create that. So one of the things that a lot of people will realize is if they want to manage the subscription billing functionality within Oracle, if they do not own service contracts, that might be a gap in how they're going to manage this. Because that is the engine which actually survives and manages the billing schedules. It still manages all the sequential subscription billing from service contracts. You could choose to have the bill from auto management for the first billing cycle and then continue with the rest of them from service contracts. You go through a couple of key features on the subscription billing model, right? There are specific fields and additional data sets that you need to capture in order management that drive how the functionality works. The term of the subscription service, the coverage level, and a template for representing how the accounting is going to be done and the billing is going to be done. There are multiple billing options from order management for the full term, or initial billing, like I said, from order management, and then followed by the rest of it from service contracts, and manage all the billing from service contracts totally. This is kind of more a functionality that chooses to provide you with a source of where the bill is going to come from, whether everything is going to come from service contracts or part of it is going to come from service contracts and the first one from order management. There are some setup and configuration specifics that need to be taken care of. You need to provide and create an item that is termed and categorized as a subscription billing item. And then most service contract items in the traditional service contracts perspective are managed by having an install-based record. The subscription model does not necessarily require that, so there's a choice whether you want to do that or not. It's by default, you could choose not to, but in case you needed to have an install-based record created, you could have that happen. Here are a couple of quick screenshots of what are the specific additions that need to be done and configurations that need to be done. I won't talk through each of the points. They're up there. There's specific defaulting rules that can be managed, and like I said, you could choose to have it created as an install-based record if need be. Transactional specifics. You have additional feeds, like I said, in order management that help capture some of these data sets. Drives dates for terms of the subscription contract, which actually manages periodicity of the billing, how long the billing would be, whether there's going to be a renewal option, if it's going to be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and how often you bill. And unrelated to the billing option, a service contract is created which manages the billing schedules. These are the billing details, which are Oracle billing specifics. Like I said, the billing options include everything from OM, all of them from service contracts, or just the first bill from OM and the rest of them for service contracts. If you go to the service contracts module, if any of you who are currently using Oracle, you will see a billing schedule which is created, which kind of looks like what the screenshot looks like or the pictorial looks like on the left-hand portion of the screen.
If you have any questions or you want to know more about our solutions and services, then please call us on the numbers displaying on your screen right now, or you can also email us at marketing@jadeglobal.com. We'll help out with any query you have, and our sales representatives is going to reach out to you for any questions or any queries you would have, and we would love to help you out. And thank you very much once again for attending.